Welcome to the Jobs and Business Development Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 10th, 2012. We're here in the John Farrow Council Chamber, room 340 of City Hall. That's a little bit after 9 a.m. here on the 10th of October. We have a two-item agenda. Do we have any general public comment? Okay. If we can take up these items, let's start with number one, please.
Item number one is a motion, Garcetti Buscaino, relative to the fund transfer between Council District 13, portion of the AB 1290 fund, and the Community Development Department, and the contract amendment with Public Counsel to provide legal case management services to homeless veterans.
Okay. I think we were still waiting for the folks from Public Counsel, so having announced that, let's hold that on the desk and go to item number two.
Item number two is a motion, Garcetti Rosendahl, relative to the allocation of funds to Managed Career Solutions, Inc., from the CD13 portion of the AB 1290 fund to provide support services to at least 50 veterans.
So we have in Los Angeles given more veterans to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan than any other city in America. We also have existing veterans from previous wars, and today both these items are this committee's efforts to focus some of our attention on the veteran population and finding them jobs and helping them get the supportive services to keep employed as well. So we have two items today. The second one we're taking up here first is to look at assisting to at least 50 veterans through a program that we've been working with a number of different folks with to see if we can make that sort of focused effort to help them. So, good morning, Mr. Irish.
Good morning.
Give us an overview, just in general terms, about what our veterans programs and efforts are before we get into the specifics of what we're looking to do here.
Greg Irish, Executive Director of the Workforce Investment Board. You're being hit with two Gregs today.
Yes.
Greg Burke, CDD.
Mr. Chair, as you know, the U.S. population of vets is 22 million, 1.9 million in California. The county of L.A. has 346,000. The city has 173,000. We're second in the nation as a city, as a municipality in terms of vets, only to New York City. So we have a definite need here, especially for returning vets. The unemployment rate is phenomenal for vets right now. I want to commend you for doing this. We do have a number of WorkSource centers. Those are our job centers that are funded, of course, by the council and the mayor to provide workforce development services throughout the city. Three of them focus primarily on vets, or they have an expertise on that, and that's Goodwill Industries, Community Career Development, and of course MCS, which has joined us today, which is one of our premier WorkSource centers and is also located within your district. The WIB has actually formed a joint veterans committee. The reason why I say joint is with the county, because we're going to tackle some of these issues of rampant unemployment among vets, especially returning vets from, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan. And we've got WorkSource centers that are focusing on providing a myriad of services to veterans. Those WorkSource centers have also secured discretionary funds or discretionary grants from the state and the federal government. We hope that this money will help in terms of supplementing the services. As you mentioned, it will provide some additional services to vets. And of course, I want to speak to your first motion as well. I have yet to see a vet walk into a WorkSource center that didn't have other needs other than employment needs, and I think that's something that's definitely needed. So we have MCS here to address this. This will supplement those other activities, including those other grants. As you know, we can only meet 5% of demand, so any additional money will actually help us serve the additional folks in need. Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Greg said, and MCS is one of the premier WorkSource centers and has done a fabulous job with the veterans issues, so we're very pleased with MCS.
There'll be a focus, by the way, because you have always focused on it. You've given us some direction as the WIB on sectors. We're talking about the technology sector, the security sector. Those are right. I think a lot of folks have the misimpression, and you can speak to this as well, that vets, they have some training needs. They do, but they're the most trained people that you can find. They're the ideal employee. So we want MCS to sort of tinker on the edges get them ready for work, and in certain instances, we'll have to provide training within those two sectors, but of course, 25% of all money that a WorkSource Center currently has to be spent on training, so this will supplement the training. This can also be used for supportive services and the other needs that the training can't meet.
Let me ask you a couple general questions. Either of you guys can jump in. Either Greg. What line items are there specifically, if any, from federal or state workforce development dollars that are targeted towards veterans? Are there competitive grants, or are there line items that are part of the...
We've had some competitive grants, of course, that were appealable directly to the Secretary and to the state. As far as what we have locally, we're trying to develop, as you know, we're trying to develop a cutout from our allocation, our $50 million.
Before we get to that, just in terms of when you look at, what Los Angeles could be applying for that's already in their programs, outside of us developing our own, are there those line items in Federal Workforce Investment Act?
Well, the president attempted to put together a package of bills to address the issues of vets and unemployment. Those, of course, were rejected by Congress. We're hoping he can get them through because those will actually provide workforce development dollars specifically for veterans. Right now, we've got to rely on our regular formula allocations, and of course, the Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis, on occasion has had special releases through the states where we've had to compete for those grants. We've been successful at doing that. Again, those three WorkSource centers that I mentioned, MCS, Community Career Development, and of course Goodwill Industries, has competed and has brought in money to the city. But overall, it hasn't exceeded $2 million, and of course we have more of a demand than $2 million.
So the Veterans Jobs Bill that was proposed at the national level, that was just this past month, right? It was shot down in the Senate.
Shot down in the Senate.
So we may be looking at some attempt, no matter what the outcome of the elections are, in the lame duck session. That's often when it's the most productive time. So I'm going to ask that. Well, maybe it's appropriate for us to be introducing a motion as opposed to attaching it to anything here for the city to take a position on that. There'll be a strategic moment to do that. Does the state have any specific line items that are targeted towards veterans?
We won't see that for a while. They did have a competition a year ago. Actually, that money has expired. MCS, its grant is expired. So we're hoping the governor will release another round. Perhaps that's something we can send to the state to encourage them to release
another round of specific veterans?
Of specific veterans funding, yes.
Yeah. Do you have any idea in terms of the veterans in the city, their geographical distribution? Is there a larger concentration in certain parts of the city?
We're going to try to tackle that issue. I know United Way has funded a veteran study. That's going to come back in terms of we're waiting for them to unveil that study. The other issue, or one of the challenges, is we don't know where all the veterans are. The second challenge, and I'll be honest with you, when you look at other cities, and I've spent some time in Washington and other cities in New York working in municipal government. The city of New York actually has a veteran specialist. So does Chicago. I think there's probably a need for that here. I think we tend to think that Veterans Affairs falls under either the federal government or under county government, and I know the county has a Veterans Commission. We don't have a veterans coordinator for the city. I think that's probably needed in light of the problems we're going to face in the future with returning vets.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So in terms of the motion before us, the funds, the $45,000 in funds, how will this be applied, and how do we make that happen? So should we have MCS come up and
yes, if
detail?
That would be a good idea.
Okay. You guys can come up to the table. It's fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Philip Starr, Managed Care Solutions. I'm the executive director, and with me, Richard Galope, who is our director of development and also U.S. Air Force.
I'm sorry about your loss to Navy this weekend. But you put up a good fight. Anyway, sorry.
So, as a practitioner providing workforce development services, we do an outreach to try and find out where the pockets of unemployment are. And one area that we've gone to directly are to the reserve the reserve offices. And Richard can speak of a recent meeting he had in San Pedro.
Yes, recently we engaged with the National Guard unit based in San Pedro just to get a glimpse of what the potential profile was for those that were either underemployed or unemployed. And the anecdotal information that was provided directly to us was the fact that about 40% of the 450 individuals in that unit alone were unemployed, with about 26% underemployed. And with those residents being part of not just the District 15 but adjacent districts, our plan was to engage other Guard units that were attached to that unit all the way into the City of LA areas and determine what that population was, what the statistics were, and how we could engage that population.
Mm-hmm. What employers do you target when you get an assessment? I mean, who is? We heard security. We heard what was the other sector that Mr. Irish mentioned?
We target the occupations. First of all, some veterans need a job right away. So the security occupations, for example, are really good at hiring veterans. So there are various security companies that will immediately hire veterans. And we've found some pay $14, $15, $16 an hour because there's one company, for example, Advanced Concept Securities, I believe, where they do personal security for celebrities and so on. They'll pay $15 an hour, and they always look for veterans. Mm-hmm. So we can often quickly train and place the veterans in those occupations. But some are looking for job training. They want to enter a career in the long term, and some with their background, we found healthcare, emergency preparedness are good careers. We've trained an emergency medical technician and nursing assisting as a way of getting a veteran into the healthcare sector. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we have a grant proposal with the Employment Training Panel, which should be approved in the next couple of weeks, which will allow us to train 50 local veterans in either security or healthcare. And having these additional resources means that we can now refer them for additional supportive services from community organizations so that their housing needs and other needs, emergency needs, medical needs, benefit needs from the VA, so on, can be addressed.
Down at San Pedro, I know that there's a strong desire among the ILWU, the Longshore Union. There's a number of vets that are in that, and they recently brought to my attention their desires to help out vets. So as you look at this and as we look down there, they might be a good collaborator as well and we can give you the information of who to check in with there. I think one of the things is the city doesn't have any kind of comprehensive veteran strategy, and probably it's because, as Mr. Irish said, it's not seen that we are the core veteran services providers, but the city is, between jobs and housing. Referrals, obviously, to the other services that are there, mental health and other things. We also, I think, can be a place to really encourage those businesses that we do business with or that we help license in the city to hire veterans. I can think of some great companies out there. Time Warner has an excellent program. Time Warner has hired technicians and done some great stuff, but I don't know if AT&T is doing the same or other places. So we want to really see what we can do, because I think most people want to help our veterans, but we don't have. This is what government does well. In particular, we touch all these people, whether it's an insert in a tax bill, whether it's reaching out to some of our larger employers, Kaiser, et cetera, and seeing what opportunities exist there. Long term, I would love to see us looking at some sort of way to bring these services together. And as we learned at Los Angeles City College, where you run a WorkSource center, half of the veterans that go to Los Angeles City College are homeless. Half, 50%. Yeah. They might not be living on the street, but they're in a car or on someone's couch. And some of them, trying to get classes and trying to improve their situation. So walk me through, this is how you would identify these folks, these veterans, and then I assume you do an assessment based on each one of them and their skill base. It's easier if it's somebody who's been a medic. It's tougher if it's been somebody who's been in infantry, although maybe for security they have some skills that are applicable. But walk us through how that process goes.
Well, I'd also like to introduce Ernesto Garcia here, who's Navy,
yes.
And he does the direct service provision in terms of helping the veterans find jobs and also doing the recruitment. We've been an awardee of the state for their veterans program since 2006. So we have several agencies, primarily the Employment Development Department, but also the U.S. Veterans Administration and other agencies that regularly refer veterans in need of employment services to us. So we have a stream, I think, Ernesto, you get calls every day from veterans that need services. So we look to see what training resources we have for them and what job placement resources we have for them. But in our assessment, we also do a more global assessment to see what other benefits they need. And invariably, as you bring up, they do. So we refer them to housing, we refer them for legal aid, we refer them back to the VA. And EDD has actually representatives that work on advocacy for veterans to help them get their VA benefits, their health benefits, and so on. So we refer to all those organizations, but given our resources, it's sometimes difficult to keep the co-case management alive because we're so busy helping with the job training piece. We don't always know unless the veteran tells us what's going on with those auxiliary services, those wraparound services. So this will give us additional resources to keep in touch with those partners and make sure that the veteran is getting everything they need.
Yep. Okay. I just met yesterday with a group called Empower USA, I believe, and it's looking at opportunities to take veterans and to train them in the installation of solar panels. We're working with the laborers, Local 300 union, and they exclusively work with American manufactured, American made solar panels with an American company, hiring veterans and then going in and doing some pilot projects. And so we're working with them too to also see whether through DWP we might be able to use this feed-in tariff, which is the way we're paying people to put on larger buildings solar power on their roofs and then buying it from them, and whether or not we might be able to integrate some veterans into that. So as part of this too, we may pull them in and see if we might be able to look at that as part of the assistance. They are able to go in and assess energy efficiency in people's homes, in their businesses, and then also look at solar installation as part of the job.
Okay, so we will contact them.
Okay, super. All right, so with that, I guess okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move this item number 2 forward, and we will get to work. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So public council didn't show up, so we want to do those extend their contracts with CDD can talk about with the existing contract with public council.
Okay, it looks like public council has not shown up, but if CDD doesn't mind coming back to the table. The item number 1 is an extension of a program that we helped launch with public council to provide legal case management to homeless veterans to advocate and secure entitlements, many for housing and other issues, but legal services, et cetera. There's many entitlements that veterans can access, but they are not accessing. It's money that we're leaving on the table and that we're leaving them behind. So we're looking at this. I came together with Councilmember Buscaino, and I think we'll be looking at doing some of this both in my district and in his, because there's a disproportionate number in the harbor area of veterans, at least anecdotally, in Wilmington, et cetera. But to look at $125,000 to be able to extend through CDD legal case management to homeless veterans. Can you just speak to, if you know, any of the work that's been done to this point and the successes we've been able to have to connect veterans with their benefits?
Well, it's along the lines of what we're doing with our Family Source system. We've got an entire system of Family Source centers. Their purpose, or they serve as a human services system. As you know, human services is under the county, but the city actually has a human services system of Family Source centers, and their purpose in terms of some of their goals and objectives, and we do have some metrics for it, is to connect folks to the benefits that they're eligible for. This complements that. Again, that system, the Family Source system, focuses on a myriad of different populations. This will be targeted to veterans, of course, and this will complement what we do in those centers. So again, we didn't have a specific carve-out for vets. within that system, and this helps with legal services in terms of housing issues. It runs the gamut. So we think this is along the lines of what we've done already in terms of making sure that we have a human services delivery system. But again, it's the specific carve-out for veterans that makes it unique and makes it very worthwhile. Greg?
Yeah, and also with the WIA program, this year we instituted the 10% enrollment rule, focus on veterans. So again, putting emphasis on that population is really important.
Yeah, and you know the workforce development money is limited to job training. It's very weak in terms of supportive services. Yesterday you actually saw where we were using a national emergency grant, and we had 3% of the money could only be used for supportive services. So we're focusing on job training. As I mentioned with the other item, when folks walk in, generally they have multiple problems, just not getting a job. Some of them don't have a place to live, as you mentioned, so many homeless vets. So this complements it. This allows us, again, to use the workforce investment dollars for what for which they're intended, but it also provides or bumps up our services in terms of the support services that we can use, specifically for some of these vets that are going to be going through the program we just recently described in terms of job training. Legal services are critical. The other social services, which we don't have the support of, we have the support with this money.
Yep. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. We'll move this one forward as well. Both these will go forward as recommendations. Do we have any cards on any of these? Okay. Then we'll go forward as recommendations from the chair. And we will return to, and when this comes in council, I think we'll have some veterans that we have come out as well to talk about some of the situation, just to raise awareness in this council and the city about what more we can be doing for our veterans, thank them for their service, and to integrate them into a productive life here in the city. So with that, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for the services that you provide at MCS and at CDD and the Workforce Investment Board. And this meeting is adjourned.